And I'll go to. Thank you. Carolyn, able to see this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hey, hi all. Thanks, Carolyn and team, for giving me an opportunity to talk about one of the lessons in guidance and counseling. So this lesson is all about how do we collect data for the counselors who are intending to do guidance and counseling. What are the different methods? You can see overlap of these topics on what we did in first semester, right? We had been given an introduction about what are the different kinds of tests and all that stuff and different kind of data collection methods. But here it will be very specific for a counselor. From a research perspective, we would have seen similar topics coming from a research methodology. But here it is going to be purely from an individual counselor who's going to do this assessment. So one thing which I wanted to give while we start on this entire chapter was how all these topics are interrelated. And I had confusion on what is test, what is assessment. So I thought I will give a holistic view here, right? So psychology assessment is a combination of multiple assessments and tests which give a holistic view for the counselor to identify what is the problem this customer, this client may have, right? Either a child or an adult. How do they identify the intervention plan, which could be a clinical intervention where they may recommend them to a clinical psychologist or to a psychiatrist, or provide, in our case, from a guidance and education counseling, what are the educational related interventions and vocational interventions, right? So for them to do it, the left side is all the tools that is available. So one tool is predominantly psychology test, right? Your aptitude test or your performance test kind of stuff, which focus majority on quantitative. There are qualitative tests as well, but I have just mentioned as quantitative because it majority aligns with that. And from a qualitative standpoint, observations are one, interviews are one, sociometry, this is mentioned in our text only in one place, but I have just included, which helps to assess how a person is socially interactive, right? His interactiveness in a social setting. And cumulative record is another tool which is used in the school settings, where you get the longitudinal view of a student. All put together, a counselor can also use a case study as a method to gain a holistic view. For that, one more tool is going to be an autobiography, which is going to be a guided one, where we give prompts and it will help people, right? That's how it is. So what are these tools are going to be focusing on, right? So if you see, the psychology tests are going to help us to assess characteristics, whether the person has an ability, what is the attitude they have, what is motivating them, their behavioral aspects, interests, needs, what do they value, everything, right? Including emotional quotient, affinity to use, to take up change. It could be anything. If you see the cumulative record card, right, which is being shown here, this pointing here. This is again captured by the school, right? So it shows how different is this person or how unique is an individual, and what are the history they have had, and it gives the longitudinal way, right? Either a person is being details are collected over a period of 6 months to 1 year, it could extend. And autobiography is going to be a person where they are going to talk about themselves in their point of view. So it helps to identify what either a test or a observation or interview cannot share. Autobiography way of assessment will help a person to talk about how they identify themselves, what its self-esteem mean to them, what are the emotional things they undergo, how are they feeling, how do they think. So it helps us to understand all those things, right? So this chapter talks about each of these tests in detail, and I have also taken help from Jenny Collade to give some examples for us to relate to, plus few snippets which is available in internet as well. Okay, so go to the next slide. So we'll start with the end in the mind, right? At the end of it, we need to do some assessment, right? So we'll make it interactive now. So if we are going to assess a person called Arun, right? A pseudo person who's 18-year-old, he has experiencing academic difficulties in his UG program. So if I need to do an assessment, how do I really approach, right? The potential drivers could be whatever I have listed here, right? He may have an anxiety when he is writing exams. He may have a language barrier into a new place. There could be a family crisis. It could be all. How do you identify with the context which we covered earlier, right? How do we really assess? Can anyone share? These are the potential drivers. How can we validate? Okay. So I take silence as a response.
We'll start with academic records.
Yes, Chitra ma'am.
We will start with the academic records. Then we will consider other, like including other tests and also the teachers' view, sources like family or so teachers' view. To address, to just know about the learning disabilities or any health concern or family stress, something like that.
Yeah, perfect.
Then we will talk to the student.
Yeah, correct. 1 second, I'm not able to move further. So as Chitra ma'am talked about, this is again representative thing, right? Whatever she said is also is inclusive. Learning challenge, you do test. Also, you see past history, right? The educational backgrounds, the test, how he or Arun had performed in the past, and what these tests here mean, right? Achievement test in this in the UG program for the specific core subject he has taken. How does this particular Arun's knowledge is there? We can even assess it, right? Whether he has understood or he has not understood. Or it also talks about over a period of time, does he has any problem including memory, or he has higher concepts, he has attention challenges or learning challenges, right? And whether there are sudden creep of mental health issues which can be uncovered using interviews, whether the attention span has really come down, which we can use by observation, whether the family or issues or social stress we can assess using interviews. And if he really don't like the subject itself, that's why he's not performing, we can even try to understand with interest or another informal interviews also, right? Informal conversations also, or any physical health problems, whatever it is. These are the different ways. What is that we can use? That is something after these individual topics we'll.
Can I add one more, Bharati?
Yes, Chitra ma'am.
We should also assess the difficulties with the boy, whether in his planning or time management or his struggles in that particular in a particular subject. If he has
the way
any,
he is, the way he is, his own individual capabilities itself, right?
Yeah.
Having the attention, or he is aloof, he doesn't want to read. It could be everything. I just called out, right? So for us to really see this particular person holistically, if you see here, we are using all diversified tests and assessments which this particular section was talking about, right? So this itself is a case study. So I'm trying to get into a detail of one person who has a challenge. End to end, I'm trying to understand, hey, what are the areas? It is typically not simple. It doesn't say that he has he is felt sick, hence he scored less mark. We don't know that. Since it's complex where we need to correlate with multiple things, this is a typical example of a case study also, right? So I'll move to the next thing. So since the first thing we are going to talk about is test. So any one of you have taken recently any tests which was administered online, or you took any test in paper-based test, right? I took an emotional intelligence test, and it gave me ratings on how is my self-awareness, how is my relationship management, and all that stuff. And I had my own observation. I was really surprised to see my relationship management was being ranked low, and I had doubts on that also. Right. Similarly, did any one of you have undergone any test? It could be assessments also, right? Surveys which people take. Anyone want to share? Yes, Chitra ma'am.
I took a temperament analysis test.
So what did you feel about the?
I could not, because I was thinking that I was like a sanguine person, but somehow I landed up somewhere between sanguine and choleric.
Yeah. Same. I was also surprised. It says I couldn't manage conflict, though it is to an extent okay, but it was rating me so bad, right? So, that's what test is. So we cannot decide on what we are with only one test, right?
Exactly.
So it is just a snapshot at that point of time. Probably the way we want to respond to those questions, right? It had 12 questions against relationship management. The way I choose was different. So it was just that snapshot. And context also matters. So when I'm going to take a test, right? So when I joined my new company, they do tests to understand the security concepts within the organization. It was a 10 questions. You won't believe I failed 10 times and I cleared 100% only at the 11th time, because I was anxious, or I was really under pressure, right? Hey, this is only 10 questions. Why I'm not able to? Every attempt I was failing. So it could be my anxiety plus the way I was really understanding that at that point, right? And the results of these doesn't define me, right? So when, as a psychologist or as a counselor, when we are going to interact, even if we see a person having a low IQ, it doesn't define that particular person. That is how we need to communicate, right? So with that thing, I will just go to what is psychology tests, right? So as I wanted to reiterate, it is very diversified. There are so many tests available. So I'm just, whatever I'm showing is a sample. It is going to cover my abilities, attitudes, motivations, performance, needs, interest, everything. And if something is going to assess me, how should these psychology tests has to be designed, right? So when I'm going to pick, as a psychologist, if I'm going to pick particular test for a individual, right, I need to ensure that is that standardized, is people are using, and even after people using it, is it reliable, right? It should give the same results. It should not give one when I take, and when Chitra ma'am take, if it is going to give not completely different sets, right? Or it is, we covered that in the research methodology last year, right? Reliability, where it has to show consistent results when I take it, right? And is it valid in this particular situation? And am I choosing this test for this particular need? In this case, for Arun, what is the test I may need to check? Okay, should I take a personality test? Is there any traits that has changed? Is he become introvert, or what is that he is? So I can choose based upon the need of the client, and I can do it. And whatever we are doing, there will be a standard or a norm against which it is going to be compared, right? So I will not say that. So I will show some examples. I will not say that, okay, since I scored IQ 90 of 10, I'm super, right? No, it may not be there. It will still give a guidance that 90 also is going to be interpreted in a certain way. So I need to understand that. And the interpretation, as we were talking earlier, cannot be done only for this particular thing. I need to take this as an input, relate with other assessments which I'm going to do, results of it, and then try to come to a conclusion rather than taking only one thing as a reference, right? So I'll show you some examples. QRA generated. I couldn't get a sample from internet, so I was asking Jenny to help us, right? So this is one evaluation. This is one assessment for intelligence for children, right? It talks about how is the person is comprehension from a verbal, are they visually able to assess things, how is their working memory, how is their processing speed. If you see this, there is a standard score which is available, and for Aditya, what is the percentile of rank? And if you see in that percentile of rank, if it is lesser, they are already giving a guidance in terms of low average. So this is something which came out of Gen A, so it gives everything, right? But as a psychologist, if I'm going to instrument any of these tests, I should have skills where I need to understand how I should administer it, how I need to interpret these results, and how I need to even communicate these results to the individual, right? That is going to be very, very important. So here they say the weakness is going to be working memory because it is 23rd the percentile, and the processing speed. So he has verbal skills, really good skills, but the way he is able to process the information and perform task, it's difficult. That's how it is going to be interpreted. So I need to have deep knowledge in terms of interpreting it, using it in the right way. Before that, validating, yes, this is the right test that I need to have, right? So this is one such example. The other one which I wanted to share was, 1 second. This is something which we may not be aware, but if I'm going to be part of just a reference, right? It is not included for a counseling, but if their HR team is going to assess someone to really see where they are with respect to their personality traits, is it good for us to get this person into the organization? There is some test also, but it may not be relevant in our case. So other is the personality trait, right? Whether this person, this is something which we again did in our first semester, right? How is the person is all about? How is the personality all about? And again, I just called out this as an example to show how the interpretation is going to be different and how we may need to read it, right? Any questions before I move to observation? Or anyone want to add more on data points here? I didn't cover every point from the content. Whatever is relevant, I have taken. And the last few slides, I have also done comparison also, where I have covered majority of it. Okay, so I will move on to the next one, observation. So observation is the most direct method, right? You see it, you observe it, and you use that for your interpretation. What is the problem? What is an opportunity? So what are the things we can observe, right? So if it is going to be in the class, what are things I can do? Hey, how is the cognitive development is in place? Is the individual child? I will take an example here as a child. How is the thinking? How is the problem solving? How is the learning? And whether the emotions, attitudes, is social emotional growth, all these are aligned. How is their physical skills? I can observe everything and I can give a holistic view. And observing is just not watching. There is a way in which I need to do it. One thing which I want to take a key takeaway is we should observe what we see, what we interpret, right? That comes later. There is a separate way in which where we separate type of notes where we can call out what is our interpretation. But when a counselor observes before taking an observation, the person has to just write what they see, what they listen, what they feel, whatever it is, right? What the child feels, not the counselor feels, what the child feels. So example, when a child is tapping the fingers, we need to write it, right? Instead of saying the child is bored, hence the child is tapping the fingers. No, don't bring your interpretation. And it has to really add context of what is a setting. So in this case, it's a classroom setting where the teacher is taking class. So we should describe the environment in which this observation is happening. And this person can observe knowingly or unknowingly also. So knowingly is called covert. Overt is where you are not telling the child or the group of students that you are really observing, but you are still observing and trying to make some reference points or references for this, right? Again, same as your psychology test, it cannot be only considered a single source of truth to make any intervention plans for the child or for a client. It is one of the intervention plans which is very, very powerful because it is very direct. And the other one which we need to be aware of is we should, again, it is something that we need to reinforce in our mind is every child is unique, or every individual we are talking is unique, right? They may not follow through as part of a member. Oh, they are deviating, so they are different. They are different should not be a bias. Instead, being unique is the way in which we need to really see. Those are the key things that we need to be aware when we are doing this observation as an assessment tool. And for preparing for an assessment, for observation, I need to have, what are the things a counselor should have? I should be really knowing what is that I'm going to do. I need to have that objective. And am I ready with all the preparation, right? Do I note it? Am I able to see everybody? Or if there is a possibility, can I record it so that if things which I'm going to miss it, non-verbal cues, I can take it later also. But most importantly, what is that I'm really looking for, right? This part. Is this part? Or in Arun case, if we really want to understand, is Arun really spending his times properly, and we want to understand how attentive Arun is in the class, then we need to really say, okay, I'm going to observe Arun, how attentive he is in the class, right? And psychological preparation, as I said, don't bring your bias, your interpretation, the individual counselor's interpretation into the way we observe it. Here we are just come as an observer without any strings attached, right? And when these observation happens, the field notes is something which is a record keeping, right? How do I record it, right? So even though I can record a video or an audio, but still I need to describe it. So anecdotal record is a brief interpretation, or no, sorry, brief description of what has happened. And critical incident record is a significant or detailed one. So I'll show you some references. So if you see here, this is a anecdotal record. So if you see here, this is again generated only. So it shows the person has written that he crumbled the paper, he didn't make eye contact, and what even they have noted, like he picked the pencil, resume work. There was a boredom that has happened, right? So that is something at a very high level. Whereas so here again you can see there is no interpretation. Whereas in the critical event records, where it is going to be something very, very critical, there is an aggressive behavior that has happened, and you want to talk about the detail, right? What triggered, what was the prior thing happened, how the child responded, and what did you see, and what was the reaction post that also. So that is all called out in detail in your critical event records. So here we are just going to call those out, but what are the focus items are what was the behavior that happened, what was a precursor before the incident, what was the reflections. This is where I was talking about. This will be called out as a separate note, but not during the narration of the incident. Post everything, your critical event record completion, you can, at the end, there may be a section to talk about what is your reflection about this, right? There you can talk about your interpretation as a reference, but not, that will still not carry much weightage. What is the event that has happened is what is going to carry weightage. I'm pausing for any questions. Okay. So this is again one more example of social engagement in class, right? Here, a school observer is observing one of the students who is in class 6, how engaging this person is, right? So they have tried to do for entire day, right? How the person is really doing. So if you see how she is engaging, she is not at all engaging. Engagement rate is 3 out of 10 from start to 6 o'clock, right? That's how it is. She was talking only in 3 instances. So this is again an observation where notes have been made. Okay. So the next is interviews. So in observation, you are not talking to the client, you are not talking to the child. Whereas interviews is where you are triggering the child or your client to talk. And how do you really make it, right? How do you make that effective so that you are able to really capture things which an observation cannot bring? For example, in observation, you will not know what the child is thinking. what was the intent. You can infer only, but the child is not going to tell what was the intent, why he or she did it. What was she feeling? She was feeling lonely or she feeling bored. Everything is all interpretation. But here you will be able to see or hear from the child directly as part of the way he or she is going to converse. So the focus is going to be feelings, intentions, and thoughts. And it also going to give us meaning, because when the child is going to narrate something, when you are going to ask those questions, she or he or may relate to a historical things happen. Okay, when I did this, I was feeling proud, but now this opportunity I'm feeling really low, right? So they will relate to things which gives context in terms of the individual's history as well as the current event. So that it gives a lot of context for us to understand the personality of an individual better. And what are the different ways of interviews? Again, this has been covered in our research methodology class, right? So here I've just called out 3, right? In this, you have formal as well as informal also. So informal interviews are typically unstructured interviews where you just sit next to them without telling them that I'm going to interview. You just have a casual conversation. Whereas structured interview is like where you tell the child or the individual that we are going to understand the things, right? For example, in one case, I can say you have a difficulty in doing your math, so you are going to have conversations around, right? You are going to use it for a diagnostic phase where you tell why are we meeting, why are we having this conversation, what is the outcome, right? How we are, everything is being shared with the individual. Semi-structure in interviews is nothing but where I will keep these questions very specific. Time I will also leave it open also. At the end of it, I will ask, how do you feel? Which means a person can talk more, which can give us more context. Unstructured interviews is we talked about, right? So for me to really have a best interview, right, as a counselor, what are the things that I need to really do? So I've just called out few things. If you see in the pictures also, you can see the person should be able to make an eye contact. If you see the other side, the kid is really having a good rapport, holding the hands, smiling, which means the child is really open and has trust on the counselor that whatever I'm going to tell or whatever I have told, this person is going to keep it anonymous or whatever as per their agreement. And I'm confident that it will be good, right? So building a rapport and having a comfortable atmosphere is a very, very critical for us to create that tone for the interview where the individual or the client will be able to share what we intend to capture. Okay, that is one. Second is open be having different options, right? So as an interviewer or as a counselor, we should have our language abilities also should have enable us to ask questions in a subtle way rather than making it closed, right? So different ways. Instead of saying, hey, are you feeling depressed, is a closed question because you assume there is a depression. Instead, hey, how are you feeling lately? So we may need to have all different narrative things available so that it doesn't look very structured interview, but it looks like a conversation. And what is more important in all these things is, are you listening? Are you listening just to the sake of listening and observing, not to tell the kid the solution? Hey, if you are feeling depressed, then this is what you need to know. No, you don't tell that recommendation immediately, right? Don't process that answer immediately. Instead, you do active listening, then reflect. So wherever they are going to have struggle, reflect and help them to come out of it and share what do they feel. So I'll show one more example here. Whatever is in green shows something which how the counselor is nudging the interviewer. The red ones are all certain things where observations, right? Which I wanted to share. How the individual is coming out, sharing what he or she feels. So this case is Meera. She's a graduate student. She has in studies. So this is an informal conversation. Somebody is just, the counselor is just coming, sitting in the bench, having a general conversation. Hey, how are you? What are the things? How did you have food and all general things, right? So when she's asking, hey, how you say that it's stressful, what is it about? So she just says plant cells. I don't know why we should really learn, right? what is that I am going to do? That shows a frustration. Then she says, oh, it's difficult. It shows that you are really carrying it, right? Though you find it difficult, but you are working on it. You're reflecting and giving the kid more nudge so that she can start sharing furthermore. Yes, she acknowledges, yes, I care, but I'm not smarter. So she continues the active listening, and she also says at the end, what is that? She is not giving solutions here. She's asking, what is that you would like to change, right? You want to change. Again, to understand the avenues where the kid is going to be open if an intervention is going to be done, right? So here it says, I don't want to be compared, and I want somebody who can help me to explain slower, right? So the moment, again, it is judgment. So if she is going to ask the teacher, can you explain one more time? Then she thinks that she will be judged dumb. But I don't want to be judged. So she says, yes, it is what it is. But can we do it next time, right? So it could be an ongoing conversation. But what are the key takeaways from this? The counselor would have got that she has struggles because she has understanding challenges. She wants someone to help her in understanding it slower. Main thing is she doesn't want to be judged dumb, right? This is my interpretation. Anyone wants to share your interpretation from this, right? As a counselor, what are the things that you observe from this discussions? Is it boring?
Good going, good going. Thank you.
So the next is a similar pattern, but it talks about how a structured interview look like, right? Since it's a child, here the counselor is not giving any paper to do those assessment. Instead, it is going to be kind of question and answer, but still intent to ask pointed questions. A, if you say difficult, how do you really rate? Maybe 3, which means I'm below average, right? So that's how you do. And how are you putting your effort? How do you so rather than making it open free form for the kid, the counselor is giving guidance. If how many hours you are spending, 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, you give everything. This will again help you to capture the details. In case of semi-structured, like how we saw your informal thing, the blue ones are the ones which the green ones are the ones which the question she wants to ask, right? But in between, she's allowing the kid to talk about multiple things, capture the feelings of the, or allows the child to talk about how he feels. Then again, converge to the next point. What are the questions she wants to do? So she's asking what is difficult, which class is difficult. Do you review? Do you ask help? Are there any questions? Are there any subjects which you feel that you need some support, right? Or where you feel confident? This can be asked in 3 questions, but if you see here, she is asking multiple things to really come out to it, converging to the point, so that in addition to these responses, she's also trying to understand the context and the meaning from the child. This is a complete unstructured thing, very similar to informal, but here it could still be in a setting of a counselor also, right? Where they have come out. So you just have those conversation, tell me it, right? So all this is tell me how mind, that's all. Two questions, but the kid is going to share a lot of information for us to consume and help to understand the problem and the current emotion the kid is feeling. So that's how interviews is going to really help. So next is autobiographies, right? The autobiography. So when I read this first, I was confused. In our textbook, it is just one para. So what is the relation between autobiography and psychology, right? By reading autobiography, how it is going to really help. Then with further research, I found there are 2 kinds of autobiographies they are talking here, right? One is the literature autobiography, which is like your Mahatma Gandhi's or Nelson Mandela's or any of your idol whom you really want, whom you get inspired, right? So that is mainly for a counselor. How do you, so the counselor gains skills by seeing, understanding more and more similar situations. So when you read through an autobiography for a counselor, it is going to really help in terms of when he or she is engaged in counseling or guidance, helps in terms of how people think. Because they will not be limited only to how they think, right? People think in different ways. So when a successful person or a person who has undergone so much of life journey, how do they think, what kind of emotions they have felt, and how they really came out or how they really turned out adversity to success, it helps them to do it, and it will also help them with the narrative when they do career guidance, and even help the individual schools children in terms of, hey, how do you really improve, how do you need to be aware. She can quote examples and all that stuff. So that is one piece of it. But from an assessment perspective, how does it helps? So then I understood there is a word called guidance autobiography, which talks about where similar autobiography, unlike your interviews, right, where you ask questions and questions and questions, here you are going to give prompts, structured prompts to the individuals, where it will help the individual to talk about their thing. Hey, tell me your school experience. How did your school go when school experience went from 5th standard to 8th standard? That's the only thing. And allow the child to talk or write about it, right? It will give a lot of insights which questions will not trigger, because when you ask questions, it's going to be prompted questions. Hey, what is your interest? What is your ability and everything? But when you give a standard prompt and we allow the like autobiography, people will start sharing things which we may not intend to ask, but it may be of very much relevance for us to understand them better. So, for example, here, but it should not go without any boundaries, right? Hence, it has to still be prompt, focusing on either on an educational topic or a personal topic or a vocational topic specific for a time and all that stuff. And it can even go in terms of your interest, ability, all these categories we can cover. As like how I was talking earlier, this alone cannot again help to make an inference for us to move further to give an intervention plan. It has to be combined with others, and we need to also cross validate. So when I tell something, probably I can say I really do studies really well. Whereas when you go and compare the school records, is performance record, probably it is not reflecting that. The kid can also tell, may not tell the truth always, right? So you want to cross reference, validate whatever they say here, and it also gives the insight for us to reaffirm certain inferences we make. So this triangulation is something which keeps coming in this, in the entire context, right? Triangulation is nothing but where I try to make inferences between multiple tools, converge, to see, to reconfirm, yes, it happens. So that is converging. Or I see how it is complementing. In one interview, I found that the person has an affinity towards arts. In other way, I see the student has a high vocabulary capability, whereas processing, right? So I can see how it complements with these things, and overall, I can really make an inference. So,
shall I add a few points for autobiographies?
Yes, Chitra ma'am.
This is like we are outsiders, right? We will be an outsider for the child. So the child will be having certain sort of potential bias. Like it will feel that whatever you say, whatever is your observation, the child will think that it has a potential bias. So at that time, if you spot somebody, having crossed such a this thing, from if you cite somebody from the autobiography, they will also have some inquisitiveness to go and see in the internet or find out about that person who crossed the same, who sailed in the same way.
Journey.
So there will be the child. There is a possibility that the child also will open up for some discussion also. And also you can help the child process some difficult emotions also by comparing that, and you can also tell them about some coping strategies.
Correct.
About the challenges. So this way it will be very, very helpful.
Correct. Identify their idols whom they really look upon for, get them to read, that also will help. Perfect. So so when I was really having struggles to visualize this, right, so I was again looking out for some examples. So this was really helpful for me to really understand, right? This is how I will also write, right? When I'm being going to be asked to write my own thing based upon the prompts that was given there. Here in this case, Priya has a challenge in similar to Arun's case only, challenge in engineering college, first year of engineering college. If you see, all the green one shows positive things. She's excited, she's proud that she made her parents proud. But all the red lines shows where his current difficulties are. The emotions that I'm drowning, it's hard, I'm feeling lonely. Why I'm feeling lonely? Because she used to be with surrounded with friends, mother together. They used to have a gala family time, but now in hostel it is very difficult. And she doesn't want to quit because she feels guilty. So all these things we can interpret by this. Again, use it for your conversations in terms of the way you want to put an intervention plan and all together. And whatever Chitra ma'am says, right? A similar person. Do you think Abdul Kalam could be an example, right? We can talk about a person whom we can say he also had challenges. He was in Tamil medium. So we can narrate those relevant cases which can help them to move on. So next is case study. So we have seen so many things, right? Case study is an assimilation of everything, right? To get a holistic view, it could be for a person, for a particular issue, that the issue is slightly complex and you need to bring everything together, and things is where case study is. So if you see, the focus can again depend upon the age of the thing. For example, for a child, it will be different. It will be learning abilities or their emotional things. For an adult, it will be different. For a senior person, it could be slightly different. It depends on all the cases, right? So I just called out what could be a typical case study example. When should we do a case study, right? When a student has problems in reading and has behavioral issues, you see that, observe, right? He doesn't want to come to school, or he's not talking. There are issues in career or the way he's doing anything we can talk about. So it's ideal for complex problem, an individual context, very specific for the particular child. And we may not be very idle. I cannot do a case study because it takes time. You need to do a lot of things together to come up with an inference, right? So you may need, if there is limited resources, you may just do a quick screening. Don't do that. Take one or two, go forward. And characteristics of the case study, as I said, it has to have a longitudinal view. This is where our there is a record which the school maintained, cumulative record card, right? That can also be used, and different sources, different time periods, how it is. And just share what is a sample case study template which is coming from our own book, right? What is a data, personal data, who referred this, what is the history, what are the natural problem, what are the seriousness, health background, everything. And I will also show the cumulative record card. This is something I think it is being maintained. I have seen a part of it in my daughter's report card, right? They also assess her in terms of how the person is doing from whether she is helping in nature, whether she is attentive in class, and all that stuff, right? They cover 10 to 15 items. So here, this is something which I took from US reference. It covers across. And this is something which they maintain for every kid or for selective set of kids whom are under observation. So what is the history in terms of the schools they had, family history, how are they performing academically, what is their traits and everything. And to do this, again, it will be part of the teacher or the counselor. So they need to be very attentive. They need to be truthful. It has to be specific. It cannot be manipulated. All those stuff still is valid, right? So now we are going back. Now we have seen all the different types of tools that is available for us to do, right? So I'm going back to the case study which we started. So if you see here, this is something which again ChatGPT came. So here in this case, I can do an assessment using the achievement test. This is this example also I showed, right? Talks about your memory, your speed, your understanding. It could be any of these tools which we can use, and methods. It could be interviews, observations, record. This is what Chitra ma'am talked about, right? My academic performance, medical history, what is it that is currently having. It also includes how Arun is really focusing. We may ask Arun to even track, hey, tell me how are you studying? When are you studying? How is your mood? How are you getting distracted? We may also ask them to do a self-reporting also. So the end of it, it could be a scenario where I'm just giving different scenarios for us to say. In this case, Arun's IQ is average. Probably they may put him into a course which is above and beyond his IQ level. Till 12th, it was okay, but taking an engineering or a complex thing is difficult. And but with an intervention, he can help. So here he says his processing speed is lower. So they say we can talk about getting some extended period time because he is lower. So he may need instead of 3 hours, 3.5 hours. This is again applicable to US. In our Indian case, I don't know whether they give these things other than people with who has blindness or other things, right? Autism kids. But this is a relevant which we can give. Second is how it could be because of the recent relocation or a cultural change which has really been, which requires a counseling and a therapy for them to get along with people, understand the cultural nuances, and get engaged by doing not studies but something extracurricular with the person is really interested, joining a music club or a dance club. Probably he will get to know it, overcome the isolation thing, and he can start performing very well. Any of these could be scenarios. So I'm stopping here for questions. Okay. So I'll move on to next. So the next set is all to give a comparative view. At the end of it, when we are going to assimilate and understand how these tests are, so I thought I will just tabulate key categories in which we want to see these tests in side by side, right? That's the intent. So I will not call out each and everything, but I will talk about few key items alone, right? So methodology, psychology. So this I need to correct it. It will also be qualitative to an extent, but it will still quantify it. Okay, within this range, within this rate, so you write and everything, it can still give you a recommendation. Whereas case studies, your CRC interviews, and all these things are qualitative to an extent. If they are going to use these tests in tandem with that, it will be used. Administration, almost everything is individual. A case study, individual and group. Only case studies that is individual. You cannot do case study for a group of people to where you compare all the details, longitudinal details, and everything for all the students. And even cumulative record is for a student, but you can do it for you. The counselor may choose to keep it if the class has 50 students, they may need to do it for 2 or 3 students. So that way I've said it can cover students of that particular subset. What is the purpose? So that we covered overall. I'll just call out psychology talks about what, and the rest is going to help us in this why and how. Autobiography also will say observation helps us to understand the external behavior. Interviews will help us to understand feelings, their intentions, thought process they have, and everything. And what is the objective of this? It's all to identify what is the strengths, what is the longitudinal, so that I get the complete view and all that stuff. Right. Second is again different types. We have covered this when we did individual. I'll just pause here. So most importantly, this is something which I wrote. It doesn't mean it is only these skills that is required, but predominantly what is critical for a counselor when they are going to use these things, right? So very important is experience in administrating the test for psychology test, plus when to use what. That is going to be very important. Knowledge plus experience. I will change that also. For case studies, It's all about individual attitude of the counselor. Be non-judgmental. You should also have the capability, right? You need to have this analytical capability to correlate different things, rather than nothing is going to come in platter. Rather, how do I connect these dots, and how do I really give an insight, take an insight and go and infer, right? And wherever the counselor doesn't have experience, especially when you do case studies, even for others it's also applicable, but for case studies where it is all this accumulation, you need to ensure that you are asking for help, right? Don't rely that I can do everything. Instead, the counselor should be open enough to ask support and ensure that the case study is comprehensive for to take intervention. And cumulative record is predominantly skills in terms of collating. Are you really doing it? The observation skills. Are you recording it right and everything? And interviewers, excellent verbal skills, communication, ability to connect with people. Your vocabulary has to be good so that you can nudge wherever it is. Make things simple for the child or the client with whom we are working. And observation as core one. Observe, don't judge. I'm pausing here for questions. Anything which you all want to share? Okay, let me go. Next, what are the advantages? Each, okay, I missed to update the interview. I didn't realize. So what are the advantages we have? We covered majority, but there is going to be a quick refresh again, right? It helps us to get objective as well as quantitative scores. It gives objective feedback. Okay, in my case, when I did my emotional intelligence assessment, it says your your relationship management needs improvement. You need to ensure that you are working on so and so. It gives me that recommendations specifically also, right? And it also compares against norm. So how it is giving, because there is a norm which, because it is scientifically designed and tested. The reason why when I score 5 on 12 is something where I need to have a thing, there is a thing. So that gives strong justification for us to, strong thing for us to use, because without any bias, we can still say, okay, there is nothing related to with a counselor. The test can still give some credible outputs. And most importantly, it gives confidence. As I said, it's verified for consistency and variability. Case studies, it's 360-degree understanding depth. Your CRC gives your breadth, and it also gives contextual information. And CRC, it may help the schools to identify, probably with academic performance which is happening in Indian schools, with their marks which they do in 12th and 10th, they classify people to certain categories where they need additional interventions, additional support, or few people who can do, they can take tough exams and all that stuff. It can be used as a classification tool, as a subset. And it also can identify, help in diagnostic, identify the interventions that has happened in the past, whether it has made a change or whether it has not made a change. And when people change, teachers change or counselor change, it gives the continuity. That is the biggest advantage. And interviews, as I said, it is the only direct method which helps us to understand the viewpoints, emotions, intents directly. That's a biggest advantage. Observation, direct access, where I'm going to observe knowingly or unknowingly, and I will be also able to understand the non-verbal cues the person is going to give, and helps me to make it more relevant. And field notes are going to be your wealth of information. Autobiography, we covered it, right? It's going to help in counselors plus for individuals to call out their perceptions about themselves more detailed. With all the things, does it mean that these tools doesn't have challenges? They do have challenges, right? Nothing comes without challenges. That's how everything is all designed, right? So certain tests may be done, will really work well for US and not work for India, because there is a cultural context is there. So if I'm going to use it, then that cultural bias is going to come and your results is going to be used. So I need to be really very, that's where the counselor's expertise is going to come, whether it is relevant for this particular thing, so that this cultural bias is going to be align, remove. An anxiety that may come when I take a child or an individual is going to take test, right? And it is again challenges. I cannot use it independently. Case studies, the amount of time and effort I need to do, the expertise I need to bring. After doing one case study, can I say, okay, this is how it is going to be for all 8th grade students, girls? No, I cannot do. It is only for that particular person. So the effort which I put is only for that particular person, individual, and their intervention. So that may be a limitation. It cannot be used generally across. Cumulative record, same intensive effort. People can misuse. People can write incorrect details, right? Because they were in a hurry or they don't want. And the bias which the person who's taking notes may also come. Interviewers bias is again one, and other is your verbal communication. If the kid is not able to communicate better, even with all the nudging, then you may not get the best out of it. Observation is again, though we keep on telling, you have to just observe, don't judge. There could still be a bias by the observer. And reactivity, the moment. So now, if the moment I'm aware that you're all listening, I may start reacting differently. So I'm assuming that I'm talking to only the computer. That's a mental mind which I'm doing, right? So whereas for kids, they may be very conscious. They may not tell what they actually feel, but they want to say what they want to hear, right? Good things to hear. It could also be there. And it's going to time consume. And observer may really feel really tired seeing it, right? Noting down what is happening in a 20-member class. And there are limitations. You cannot record everything. So you may need to go for audio recording, video recording, but still how much you can really do. So there is going to be a limitation. Autobiography, self-bias. I will tell what I want to tell. That's there. It's a limitation. So with that, I am completing the session. These are the questions which I found was coming in our last 5 to 6 years of question papers, right? It talks about assessment as a whole. What are the psychology assessments? So we may need to cover all these tools, how it comes, converge together and all that stuff. And there were a lot of questions on observation skills, and the note-making skill is a repeat. Field notes is a repeat. Similarly, case history. I probably Chitra ma'am or Carolyn, you can confirm. I assume case history as case studies also, right? So that's why I grouped it. And anything on counseling, interviews, what are the different types of interviews? All these have come. So that's it I had today. Questions?
Bharati, awesome. Bharati.
You put a lot of effort in collecting data. Also, connecting them with the different tests. Thank you so much. It was very useful.
Thanks, Chitra ma'am. Thanks to Carolyn. She gave me.
Bharati, actually, I missed it in between, actually. But the way you prepare, like, it is so awesome. Like, you know, and I was scrolling the book also. I mean, the definitions and all these are not very clear, but the way you put up, the PPT is very good. Actually, the PPT itself talks to us many things. Like, I think
those example snapshots was giving me clarity because our book was very abstract. So many of content.
Yeah, correct. Very nice. Thank you. Other short time, like, you prepared so well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to do justice. Last time I didn't do well, so this time I thought I will put it right.
Dry but Anna, it's very important. Very important, actually. The important part. You want to become a therapist or psychologist, I think you need to know all this. Every observe pandrathu, every assessment pandrathu, like, very important, actually. You know how you prepare a question. That's very important. So on my case studies nariya pannom. So I think you've done an excellent job. And அது என்ன பண்ண அது இதுக்கு மேல நம்ம பண்ண முடியாது because we have to learn and practice. நம்ம தியரிட்டிக்கலா எல்லாத்தையும் படிச்சுட்டு இருக்கோம். ஸோ ப்ராக்டிக்கலா படிக்கும் போது தான் I think ரொம்ப இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங்கா இருக்கும்.
Thank you, Carolyn ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop recording.
Yeah.